The intricate web of entangled criminals is so pervasive, ubiquitous, and complex, it is mind-boggling to contemplate the time, effort, and skill used to construct and maintain it. Still more perplexing is trying to explain how all of this was hidden from the people for many, many years until you figure out the common denominator. And then you'll also know why government-entangled multi-billion-dollar tech companies are absolutely scared shitless of thousands of us posting videos and information on social media. And you'll know why they're trying desperately to silence us, disincentivize us, and routinely violate their own terms of service and their partner contracts to that end. The more they do, the more they show their true colors, and let me tell you, they're not red, white, and blue. When you figure this out and determine it to be true beyond a reasonable doubt and to a logical and moral certainty, you'll also realize that one of the solutions given in the legend of the impossibly complex Gordian knot was not to labor endlessly and in vain trying to untie it, but to simply take your sword and cut it in half. Over the last 4 days, we have, those of us who have long ago figured out that mainstream media is full of shit, we have seen the bare ass of the propaganda arm of the Demon Rat Party. We've seen them lie with a straight face and then try to spin the story when the citizen journalists with no funding, working from their living rooms on smartphones, almost instantly debunk their vicious lies and outright treasonous disparagement of our president. Journalism in the mainstream media is dead, not only in this country, but on the entire planet. The Stasi could not have done a better job. And let me tell all you good folks, it's been this way all of our lives, even for those who are 95 years old listening to me right now. It's time we take our country back, not so much for us geezers, but for our children and those who will look back through the ledgers of history saying to themselves, if it wasn't for those citizen journalists back then, or as I once said on the world-syndicated radio talk show Radio Liberty with the late Dr. Stan Monteith, quote, if Adolf Hitler had a Palm Pilot, we'd be singing Edelweiss and doing the Sieg Heil salute right now. End quote.
The Democrats have a propaganda arm. It's called the mainstream media. They work for the Democrats. They work for them. Like sycophantic, boot-licking butt kissers. That's what they do. They're employed by them. That's what they do. They may not be physically taking money, but they sold their souls to them in a Faustian bargain a long time ago. The Democrats knew if Adam Schiff did that and lied about what's in the transcript, give us information, our opponent will shake you down, whatever nonsense sleazeball Schiff just spouted from his soup cooler, they knew that's what the media would pick up. That the media was going to portray that as what's actually in the transcript because they're bootlicking sycophants with not an ounce of integrity either.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and if they see it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made.
All right, so this was actually from July 1st, but Paul Sperry wants to remind us that it turns out Joe Biden's son Hunter started smoking crack in the early 1990s as his father was writing tough new anti-crack drug laws as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Just goes to show the character of Hunter and the ability of him to run companies. Doesn't seem like that would be such a good idea if he was actively smoking crack. Now, Sperry goes on to say that from the hearing right now, Representative Ratcliffe just said that the whistleblower is wrong in many aspects of his complaint, in which he admits I was not a direct witness, and based his complaint in part on third-hand mainstream media accounts, including the Washington Post and the New York Times. The whistleblower themselves had no idea about this call. They made their complaint based on mainstream media reports. You can't make this up. And it turns out the whistleblower is not a White House employee, but possibly a detailee. The whistleblower appears to be close to the State Department's Ukraine desk. So people in the State Department who actively want to stand in President Trump's way and stop him from getting to the bottom of what happened in Ukraine. Remember, President Trump spoke directly to Zelensky about the CrowdStrike server and the fact that Hillary's emails might possibly be there in Ukraine. If that is the case, then we know that the Democrats and all of these holdovers from the swamp and the former administration left in President Trump's administration are going to be done. Now, as reported yesterday, the whistleblower had ties all over to the Clowns in America. Well, the New York Times is actually stating that they are a Clowns in America officer. Now, the whistleblower whose complaint alleged that President Trump tried to get Ukraine to launch an investigation into former Vice President Joe Biden is a clown officer, the New York Times reported Thursday, citing 3 people familiar with his identity. The officer reportedly was working in the White House at one point and has returned to the intelligence agency, according to the newspaper. A spokesperson for the Clowns in America declined to comment for the Times story, while lawyers for the whistleblower also refused to confirm where the person worked and warned about publishing such information. Any decision to report any perceived identifying information of the whistleblower is deeply concerning and reckless, as it can place the individual in harm's way, Andrew Bakaj, his lead counsel, told the Times. The whistleblower has a right to anonymity. Now, this is all coming out in the wake of the complaint itself being released, all of the reporting pointing to the fact that this individual is more than likely a clown officer. You've got his lead attorney, Andrew Bakaj, who has a history of working with the Clowns in America, and the people who took the call, who were stenographers on the call between President Trump and President Zelensky, they are Clowns in America officers. This entire thing reeks of being a clown operation, and it just goes to show that President Trump needs to break up the Clowns in America. They are not doing anything good for this country. The only people that they have an interest in helping is themselves and their network of criminal cabal members. We need to take that place, tear it down, and get rid of that 5th column.
New York Times is reporting that the whistleblower is a CIA officer detailed to the White House. And now, new video obtained by Bloomberg showing that President Trump slammed the whistleblower during a private event in New York City yesterday. Watch this.
The person that gave the whistleblower the information, because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart, right? The spies and treason. We used to handle it a little differently than we do now. People are sick. The Trump-Ukraine call and the whistleblower who reported on the call. The original claims are false. There was no quid pro quo. In other words, deal cut, something for something. They initially stated Trump threatened to withhold military aid to Ukraine if they didn't investigate Hunter Biden. That is not in the call. That has been debunked. It is 100% false. Second, they said Trump asked for a favor to investigate Hunter Biden. That is not what he was talking about. The favor was to investigate Ukrainians' role in the corruption of the 2016 election. Thankfully, Trump asked for that. They made that up too. Finally, Trump told Zelensky, you need to talk to Giuliani. Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, brought up Giuliani, not Trump. So the 3 central tenets of their accusation, which we discussed at length yesterday, were entirely debunked, so Schiff made it up for a compliant bootlicking media to lap up like dogs and to throw that out there. Reminds me of that Batman movie with the Christopher Nolan one. Like dogs. Like dogs. When that guy's talking about killing Bruce Wayne's parents, they begged like dogs. Like dogs. Like dogs, they're going to lap it up. Now, thankfully, Brad Wenstrup, congressman on the Republican side, he came back and pretty much slammed and stuck it in Adam Schiff's face. So we needed one of these. So I don't want to leave you in a bad. Listening to Adam Schiff will always put you in a bad mood because he's a jellyfish, a spineless human being, and just a broken person. Here's Brad Wenstrup, Republican, just dropping a bomb on Adam Schiff for this stupidity. Check this out.
To withhold the information from you as the chair, this committee, or the Senate Intelligence Committee?
Director, I wish I had the confidence of knowing that but for this hearing, but for the deadline that we were forced to set with this hearing, that we would have been provided that complaint. But I don't know that we would have ever seen that complaint. Dr. Wenstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you, Mr. McGuire, for being here today. You know, I think it's a shame that we started off this hearing with fictional remarks, the implication of a conversation that took place between a president and a foreign leader, putting words into it that did not exist, that are not in the transcript. And I will contend that those were intentionally not clear, and the chairman described it as parody, and I don't believe that this is the time or the place for parody when we are trying to seek facts. Nor do those that were involved with the conversation agree with the parody that the chairman gave us. And unfortunately today, many innocent Americans are going to turn on their TV and the media is only going to show that section of what the chairman had to say. But I'm also glad to know that many Americans have seen this movie too many times and they're tired of it.
Go! Hey, that guy last night, the book signer, gave us cigars. We need the cigar thing. We totally need the cigar thing. We need the cigar thing so bad right now. Man, talk about an owning of the limbs. Nice job. Of course, these are our owning of the limbs thug life classes. We appreciate it. I just wanted to play that to not leave you in a bad mood on Friday, knowing that there are people out there who are tired of this spineless jellyfish, Adam Schiff, and are willing to say so in front of the television. Devin Nunes, by the way, also did a spectacular job. I could play clips all day from this. Smoking Adam Schiff. He's like, hey, congratulations to the Democrats on their latest rollout of their latest fake news story. Very nice, Devin Nunes. Okay.
And the deep state's stranglehold on the media was expanded to all of the social media platforms after the frazzled rat lost a rigged election due to us, you and I, and thousands of us, the deplorable conspiracy analysts who spread enough truth to not only put the maestro in the Oval Office, but start the slow but inevitable, painful exposure of over 100 years of crimes against humanity, war crimes and their cover-ups, and most importantly, crimes against children, for which they will be held accountable. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the formerly free and open exchange of ideas and political discourse has been seriously tainted by the deep state high-tech government-entangled companies that were designed to be the nexus point of the covert construction of an Orwellian New World Order. However, their plan has backfired, and if they persist with their bullshit, the wrath of pissed-off patriots will soon be upon them. Life in Gitmo will be preferable. Listen carefully as these traitorous lying bastards dance around trying to avoid truthfully answering questions. They know that we know, but continue to double down on their lies and obfuscations. Americans have to demand that these traitors be dealt with, or the only alternative will be the exercise of our God-given, constitutionally protected right and civil duty to remove them and their co-conspirators by force.
You say that Google takes its content moderation responsibilities very seriously. That's your testimony here today. Is that fair to say? You strive to be even-handed and neutral.
Yes, we construct our algorithms to be politically neutral.
Analytically objective and apolitical, I think, were your exact words.
Exactly.
Is that right? And you don't impose filters based on political viewpoints. That's your testimony.
That's correct.
And despite the fact that almost exclusively your executives' employees donate to one political party, I think 1% of the donations that came from Google in 2016 went to Republicans or Donald Trump. All the rest went to the other party, Hillary Clinton, the Democrats. It is your testimony that you never use content moderation to advance an ideological agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, and it's it is both contrary to our mission, contrary to our business interests, and it would be incompatible with the systems that we build to work political bias in there, which I think is why we've had third-party studies, including the ones that I referenced, that demonstrate that we do not have political bias.
And inconsistent with your basic values, I imagine you would say.
Inconsistent with our values.
Except for when you do it in China, right? You're happy to censor for the repressive authoritarian Chinese regime, like for instance with Google.cn, happy to censor away any mention of Tiananmen Square, happy to help the Chinese government maintain control of all information within the country, happy to help them control the information flow to their own citizens. You're happy to do all of that. Would you call that censorship with an ideological agenda?
Senator, we don't offer almost any of our products in China. We don't offer Google search.
Wait. Are you saying that Google CN did not include censorship tools based on what the Chinese regime asked for? Is that your testimony?
Google.
Just reminds you drove.
We have not.
Google CN did not include censorship material?
Senator, I don't know what you're
not familiar with Google CN?
I'm referencing the fact that we exited China in 2010, and we did so because Google, at that point, in addition to being under attack, we felt that the censorship requirements that were being applied to Google were not compatible with the products that we were able to.
But you did offer Google CN. You developed it, and it included censorship tools that would have screened out things like mentions of Tiananmen Square. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Senator. Are you referring to Project Dragonfly?
Oh, well, I wasn't, but because that's a separate thing. But since you mentioned Project Dragonfly, why don't you tell us about it? Is it active right now?
It's not, Senator.
You're able to say that for the record. It's not active. You've abandoned Project Dragonfly?
Yes, we have terminated that.
Are you willing to commit today here that Google will not agree to or participate in any form of censorship with the Chinese regime in China against Chinese citizens? Or will you commit to that? You will not agree to any information or restrictions on data flow in China, the Chinese market?
Senator, I'm trying to imagine hypothetically what you're referencing. We don't provide search.
CN, for instance.
We don't reference China's search in China. Fundamentally in China, we actually do very little today, certainly compared to any other major technology company. We really...
So you won't block search terms for Uyghurs in concentration camps or Tiananmen Square? You won't do that in any business, any venture going forward?
We don't...
No, I'm asking you won't, because we know you have in the past. That's what Google CN was. You know you've contemplated it with Project Dragonfly. I'm asking you now for a commitment. I'm glad to hear you say that Project Dragonfly has been canceled. I think that's news. So that's good to hear, because there's been news reports that it's still active. So I'm delighted to hear that.
We've been clear that we have no current plans to go into China in the search market.
That's great. So that's great. And you're committing to me here today that you will not in the future do so, and you will not engage in censorship in China.
What we're willing to commit to, Senator, is that any decision to ever look at going back into the China search market is one that we would take only in consultation with key stakeholders.
Yeah, that's what you said in response to Senator Blumenthal's questions about whether or not you submit to an audit. It was the longest no in the English language. Now you're not giving me a yes or a no. Let me just come back to a question that Senator Blumenthal asked I thought was interesting. You're confident that Google hasn't been infiltrated by Chinese intelligence?
We see no evidence of that, Senator.
What do you think about General Dunford, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his comment at the Atlantic Council a few months ago that typically, I'm quoting him, typically if a company does business in China, they're automatically going to be required to have a cell of the Communist Party in that company, and that is going to lead to the intellectual property from that company finding its way to the Chinese military. Do you think he's right about that, wrong about that?
Senator, we do, as I mentioned before, barely any business in China, so I don't have really the basis.
And you have tried to.
2010, we exited the country.
That wasn't that long ago.
10 years ago.
Okay. Well, my point is this. You've been more than willing to engage in ideological censorship in the largest market in the world. You have been more than happy to partner with the most repressive authoritarian regime on the planet, all for profits, whatever it is that is good for Google. Why would anybody believe you now when you say you won't submit to a third-party audit? You just answered Senator Blumenthal no to that. You won't commit to me that you won't engage in censorship when it suits your purposes in China, in the Chinese market, for instance, in the future. Why would anybody believe you now when you say we don't ever impose an ideological agenda? What assurances can you give us?
Senator, I think what I can tell you is that In China today, we don't offer any of the products that you're referencing that would...
No, I mean here, what assurance? Why would we believe you now when you say in the United States or anywhere that you do business? Why would we believe anything Google says about what it does or does not do in terms of promoting an ideological agenda? We know you've done it in the past. We know you do it when it suits your bottom line. Why would we believe you now? What assurances can you give besides your own testimony?
Senator, I fundamentally disagree that we're doing, that these are practices for our bottom line. I will tell you that Google has a demonstrated track record of building search engines that meet the needs of consumers here and around the world. We are a trusted brand. I don't know what answer you're looking for, but it's...
Well, what I'm looking for is a little honesty, and what I'm also looking for is some accountability. So let me give you another shot at Senator Blumenthal's question. Will you submit to an independent third-party audit about your content moderation practices?
Again, we have plenty of people looking at our content moderation practices. The Economist just did a year-long study of our content.
The Economist is not an independent audit. They're not auditors.
It was entirely independent of Google.
So is that a yes? If you're happy to do it for them, then you feel like...
If third parties want to moderate...
You'll open your books
they look at us...
Big news we're going to make today. Is this a yes? We're getting to yes.
No, I'm telling you that Google's content moderation has been looked at by...
So sad. So sad. Let me ask you about YouTube, some other difficult decisions. China seems to be difficult for you. YouTube is also apparently very difficult for you. Why isn't it, what is so hard about ending the automatic referral of videos featuring minors to pedophiles? Why is that difficult? Why doesn't YouTube just do it? You know you can stop it. Why won't you just do it?
Senator, I'm not sure.
You're not familiar with this issue?
No, I'm familiar with the issue that you're referring to. Based on our policy decisions that we've made earlier this year, we have eliminated referencing or recommending videos that contain minors in risky situations, risky conditions.
Wait, so you're telling me that you've turned off the auto, you've taken them out of the algorithm, you've turned off the auto referral, you're no longer recommending videos of minors?
Yes, not all minors. There will be situations where there's perfectly legitimate video footage containing minors, but videos that contain minors in risky conditions, we have stopped recommending those videos.
How much money does YouTube make from videos featuring children?
We don't break down money that way, Senator.
You don't know what it really, because I thought the response to the New York Times was that it would be devastating for your business model.
I don't know that reference. We don't. I can tell you that the kinds of videos that you're referencing, we have no desire to see pedophiles utilizing YouTube.
I wouldn't have thought so either.
And that's the reason we've taken a number of steps.
How about this? You may know that I've introduced a bill that would codify this into law. Steps, it sounds like the ones you say you've voluntarily taken. So will Google support that bill that would stop any company, yours or others, from automatically referring videos featuring minors in this way?
I'd be happy to. I haven't looked at the bill, but I would be happy to look at it. And certainly it's an area it sounds like we have a common interest in working towards a successful outcome on.
Well, it's certainly an area in which I think the American people have an interest in protecting their children, just as the American people have an interest in getting information that is free and fair, just as the American people have an interest in having their data protected,
Absolutely.
Just as the American people have an interest in having companies that describe themselves as a proudly American company. Those are your words.
Absolutely.
From not doing business with, sharing secrets with, or otherwise promoting the worst, most authoritarian regime on the planet, which is China. So, I'll just associate myself with the remarks of, I think, all of my colleagues here. Clearly, our trust and patience in your company and the behavior of your monopoly has run out. It has certainly run out with me, and I think it's time for some accountability. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our only witness today is Mr. Sundar Pichai. Mr. Pichai is the Chief Executive Officer of Google.
Chairman Goodlatte, Ranking Member Nadler, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
More than 90% of all internet searches take place on Google or its subsidiary, YouTube, and they are curating what we see. Google has long faced criticism for manipulating search results to censor conservatives. Conservative individuals and organizations have had their pro-Trump content tagged as hate speech or had their content reduced in search results. So what are you going to improve that situation?
Congressman, thanks for the question. If I may, some of the studies you mentioned, we have investigated those. There are other studies which have looked at it. We have found issues with the methodology and the sample size and so on. But let me step back and say, providing users with high quality, accurate, and trusted information is sacrosanct to us. It's what our principles are, and our business interests, our natural long-term incentives are aligned with that. We want to serve users everywhere, and we need to earn their trust in doing so.
Ileana Murillo is Google's head of multicultural marketing. Does Ms. Murillo do good work?
I'm not directly familiar with her work, but she's an employee of Google, and we are proud of our employees.
Your head of multicultural marketing said you were pushing to get out the Latino vote, paying for a ride to the polls for the Latino vote only in key states, and you're saying that's not accurate.
Yes, that's right. We haven't found any evidence to substantiate any.
So she just made it up out of thin air the day after the election and wrote this email to your top executives, and it's not true?
Congressman, I'm happy to follow up, but I think the employees today do their own activities.
We don't want the follow-up. I want the real answers right here in this committee.
As I said earlier, we have looked into it. We didn't find
Did you push to get out the key vote? And I would say the two most populous states for Latinos would be California and Texas. Did you push to get out the Latino vote and pay for people to go to the polls in California and Texas?
We as a company didn't have any effort to push out votes for any particular demographic. That would be against our principles. We participate in the civic process in a nonpartisan way, and we think it's really important we do it that way.
I have an iPhone, and if I move from here and go over there and sit with my Democrat friends, which will make them real nervous, does Google track my movement? Does Google, through this phone, know that I have moved here and moved over to the left? It's either yes or no.
Not by default. There may be a Google service which you've opted into use, and if...
So Google knows that I am moving over there. It's not a trick question. You know, you make $100 million a year, you ought to be able to answer that question. Does Google know through this phone that I am moving over there and sit next to Mr. Johnson, which would make him real nervous? It's his question. It's yes or no.
I wouldn't be able to answer without looking at...
you can't say yes or no.
Without knowing more details, sir.
I have a concern concerning China. In 2010, Google left the Chinese marketplace due to concerns over hacking attacks, censorship, and how the Chinese government was possibly gaining access to data. I'm interested in what has changed since 2010 and how working with the Chinese government to censor research results are part of Google's core values. Do you understand my question?
Congressman, right now there are no plans for us to launch a search product in China. We are, in general, always looking to see how best. It's part of our core mission and our principles to try hard to provide users with information. We always have evidence based on every country we have operated in. Us reaching out and giving users to more information has a very positive impact, and we feel that calling. But right now, there are no plans to launch in China. To the extent that we ever approach a decision like that, I will be fully transparent, including with policymakers here, and engage and consult widely.
So anticipating what took place in 2016 happening again, and this is specifically regarding what Russia did to foment racial tensions in the United States, and wanting to know how you are responding to that, where they called for, fake protest, either to get African Americans to turn out to protest something that was fake, or to have white supremacists be ginned up to attack communities of color. So specifically, what is Google doing to respond to that?
We mainly saw, with respect to Russia, limited improper activity on our ad platforms. But in general, we are not a social networking company across the products we do. It's an area we haven't done well as a company. So we typically aren't connecting groups of people, and that's not how Google mainly works today. And so we haven't seen that kind of activities on our platforms. But we are vigilant and happy to share any findings which come through as we look into it more.
The operating environment in China has deteriorated with respect to surveillance, censorship, and the like since Google first made the decision in 2010 to leave. So I want to ask very specifically, are any employees currently having product meetings on this Chinese project? And if not, when did those end?
We have undertaken an internal effort, but right now there are no plans to launch a search service in China, as I said earlier.
Are there any current discussions with any member of the Chinese government on launching this app?
Currently, we are not in discussions around launching a search product in China.
Are there any current discussions with members of the Chinese government about this?
This effort currently is an internal effort, and I'm happy to consult as well as be transparent to the extent we take steps towards launching a product in China.
And who at Google is leading the Dragonfly effort?
It's our efforts around building search. It's undertaken by our search teams, but these are distributed efforts. It's a limited effort internally currently.
Will you, Mr. Pichai, rule out launching a tool for surveillance and censorship in China while you are CEO of Google?
Congressman, I commit to engaging. One of the things which is important to us as a company, we have a stated mission of providing users with information. And so we think it's in our duty to explore possibilities to give users access to information. And, I have that commitment, but, as I said earlier on this, we'll be very thoughtful and we will engage widely as we make progress.
This is now the fourth hearing in a series of ridiculous hearings on the free speech of internet companies. A significant portion of this hearing was a waste of time because the First Amendment protects private individuals and corporations' free speech rights. So I'm going to search for Congressman Steve King. I'm going to hit the news tab. First article that pops up is from ABC News. It says, Steve King's racist immigration talk prompts calls for congressional censure. That's a negative article. But you don't have a group of people at Google sitting there thinking and trying to modify search results. Every time Steve King comes up, a negative article appears. That's not what's happening, right?
We always operate for any query with the same set of principles. We are trying to reflect what is currently, if it is newsworthy, what is currently being discussed about that phrase.
Thank you. So let me just conclude here by stating the obvious. If you want positive search results, do positive things. If you don't want negative search results, don't do negative things. And to some of my colleagues across the aisle, if you're getting bad press articles and bad search results, don't blame Google or Facebook or Twitter. Consider blaming yourself.
Did Google design a prototype for a search engine that could be used in China to censor content?
Congressman, we have undertaken an internal effort.
Did you create a prototype? There was a report in The Intercept that says a prototype for the censored search engine was designed.
We have developed and explored what search could look like if it were to be launched in a country like China, and that's what we explored. And
how many months was that project ongoing?
We've had the project underway for a while, and there have been other projects which we have undertaken for a while, and we've never launched them too. So we are constantly exploring.
How many people were working on it?
The estimates, the number of engineers on the project have varied over time. At one point, we have had over 100 people working on it, it's my understanding.
Who makes the judgment calls regarding content moderation at Google?
Chairman, it depends on the area. So, for example, if it's YouTube, we have, very clear teams which are responsible for YouTube content policies. And
are they identified? Is it possible for a customer to write to them and say, hey, here's a concern I have?
We give clear channels for content creators to raise concerns back, and we have clear avenues. And And we also have had people who are responsible for these platforms, including content moderation, appear here, you know, and I think they've consulted widely here too.
Thank you. Well, you've gone for about 3.5 hours, and it's about what we predicted, isn't it, yesterday when we talked? So we thank you very much for your participation today. This concludes today's hearing, and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit written questions for the witness or additional materials for the record. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.
Welcome to our witnesses. This past April, this subcommittee held a hearing on social media bias with witnesses from Facebook and Twitter. As I noted then, any inquiry into big tech's censorship practices must take an especially hard look at Google. That's what we're doing here today. Google's control over what people hear, watch, read, and say is unprecedented. Almost 90% of internet searches in the United States use Google. Google's domination of the search engine market is so complete that to Google is now a commonplace verb. With that market power, Google can and often does control our discourse. And sometimes tech companies talk about their products and the effects of those products as though they're forces outside of big tech's control. As we've heard time and time again, big tech's favorite defense is, it wasn't me, the algorithm did it. But Google's search engine isn't some supernatural force. It's a computer program written and maintained by people. So every time we search on Google, we see only the web pages that Google decides we should see, in the order that Google decides we should see them. Type a few letters into the search bar, and Google will tell you what you should be looking for. The same is true of Google's subsidiary, YouTube, the second most visited web page in existence. When you search on YouTube, programs written by people at YouTube provide you with the results. When you watch a video, a program written by the people at YouTube suggests what you should watch next. And when you submit a video, people at YouTube determine whether you've engaged in so-called hate speech, an ever-changing and vague standard meant to give censorship an air of legitimacy. This is a staggering amount of power to ban speech, to manipulate search results, to destroy rivals, and to shape culture. More and more, Americans are demanding accountability from big tech for that massive power. One thing is certain: Congress never intended to empower large technology companies to control our speech when it passed Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That provision, Section 230, gave tech companies special privileges that nobody else gets. If the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal were to publish an op-ed that libeled a private citizen, they can be held responsible. This is the case even when those organizations don't write the content that breaks the law. They can be held responsible merely for publishing it. Not so for companies like Google and YouTube. If someone uses one of those services to commit slander or to transmit classified material or to traffic guns or drugs, far too often Google is off the hook. Section 230 makes it immune. Big tech gets a perk, a subsidy, that no one else does. Fox News, MSNBC, or anybody else. This immunity, however, was part of a deal. It was a trade. Section 230, the text of it, refers to the internet as, quote, a forum for a true diversity of political discourse. That was the trade at the heart of Section 230. This is because we expected tech companies in the business of carrying others' speech wouldn't favor any side when they did so. There wouldn't be a conservative internet and a liberal internet. There'd just be the internet. That bargain today is falling apart. Big tech continues to reap the benefits of its Section 230 subsidy, but the American people do not. The American people are instead subject to both overt censorship and covert manipulation. I believe it's time to rethink that deal. If big tech cannot provide us with evidence, clear, compelling data and evidence, that it's not playing Big Brother with its vast, immense powers, there's no reason on earth why Congress should give them a special subsidy through Section 230. And that takes us to the heart of the problem. Big tech is anything but transparent. Google is happy to collect data on everyone, everywhere, constantly. On you, on me, on all of us. They make sure they know what you search, what you shop for online, what you like. They track your location within a matter of feet so that they know when you visit a physical store. But the information sharing is a one-way street. This must change. Google cannot simply hide behind its algorithms. Big tech's algorithms and search engines only do what humans at companies like Google tell them to do. Just as big tech needs and wants data on all of us, the American people need and want data on big tech. They need it to profit. We need it to protect free speech. And I hope that today, Google will start to answer some of our questions fully and candidly so that we can assess how we can work together to protect the robust marketplace of ideas that American political discourse has been built upon.
What you just saw is a compilation of things that all tie together. The mainstream media has been compromised for a very long time. The people who are doing the crimes against this country know they can get away with it because the mainstream media does everything in their power to cover it up or not mention it. And this is nothing new. They've been doing this for many, many decades, at least as long as I've been on this planet, and probably as long as all of you who are listening have been alive. So we've been deceived, we've been lied to by the only profession that is constitutionally protected. Freedom of the press. You don't hear any other profession mentioned in the Constitution. Freedom of the press is vital, and they have been compromised not only here in this country, but in every other major country worldwide. That's a fact. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do to realize that what I'm telling you is the absolute empirical fact is to look at the BBC report on 9/11 when Jane Stanley is standing there with Building 7 over her left shoulder, and she's reporting that the building fell fully 25 minutes before it actually fell, reading from a script as the host is reading from a script. They are the propaganda arm of the deep state. They've been compromised a very long time ago, before Kennedy, before John F. Kennedy. And it's been one cover-up, one bullshit story, lies, 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 propaganda, propaganda, bullshit, blowing smoke up your ass 24/7. And now that we're on social media, a little guy like me in my kitchen, in my living room, on my cell phone, making videos, threaten multi-billion-dollar government entangled corporations. We threaten them because we speak the truth. We don't have any ulterior motives. We can't be paid off, and we can't be bribed, and we can't be compromised. And they are scared shitless. They're scared shitless. Trust me on this one. We have 2 days till September 29th. Something's supposed to happen. I don't know what it is. I get this buzz. I get people telling me, reliable sources, watch the 29th. Something's going to happen. Well, hopefully by then I'll be on the road to the Poconos, where I am looking at a house because I got to get out of here. Every day is something new here in Jersey with this entanglement that I've gotten myself into with this house. And I just I have to reclaim my life and GT Foxtrot Oboe, if you get my drift. So, I want to thank all of you for listening. Loyal subscribers call me every day. Every day, get phone calls every day. And I'm on 18 hours a day. 18-hour days sometimes. I don't mind, because I'm doing it for my country. I do it for you guys. And if you don't subscribe to all 5 of my channels, don't be surprised if one day you don't see me, because Gurgle just did Whirlwind Revolt, a 2-week bad boy, hate speech, my ass. These fucking people need to be shot. I mean, really. Taken out and tried for treason. I'm wondering what the hell is the advantage of being an American citizen, because if you're not an American citizen, you can get everything for free. You get more shit than I get for free, and I'm a veteran, fought for this country. I don't get nothing for free. I pay for everything. Some wetback comes up from Mexico claiming asylum, and he gets everything for free. Everything free in America. Everything free in America. And you got people like Bernie Sanders wanted to give away the house. I mean, I don't know where these people come from. What kind of mindset they have. What they're smoking. What they're injecting. They are sick people. Sick. The president said it himself. They're sick people. They're sick. There's something wrong with their brain. They're not wired right. Maybe it's because if you eat too many babies, you get Kuru disease. This is Dave from Net4 Truth USA. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your calls and your comments. And most of all, thank you for your support. Because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. Take care. God bless all of you. Please subscribe to our backup channels, Whirlwind Revolt, Inglorious Patriots, and Net4 Truth USA 2 Patriot channel. You can also find us at Net4 Truth USA on BitChute. We fly so close to the target, we're on our 4th fighter jet. We will be relentless truth seekers until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/net4truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.